and welcome to a very special broadcast we have for you this morning. It's a little deviation from our usual morning lineup, but we sat down recently with a fantastic personality, and we want to bring that person to you this morning. Folks, again, good morning for those of you who are joining us, whether you're joining us at home, you're joining us abroad. We are delighted and happy to have all of you with us. You're going to be your usual self. Share the live, smash that emoji button for us, good folks, that others can receive the vital and credible information. Folks, we are in this electoral season and we got to hold a focus. We got to hold a focus. You know, I see a lot of people who are shifting a little bit and supporting other teams, jumping ship, as we would call it. And I did say on very publicly on social media quite recently, even people want to go, you got to let them go. What are you going to do, folks? We are reminded of a lot of things. In Trinidad, I said also quite recently, we see a lot of persons left the opposition to seemingly go to the government, only to move from the opposition to the opposition. And so folks got to do what they got to do, and we got to do what we got to do as well. And one of those things is holding a focus. How y'all doing? How was the weekend, folks? How was the weekend? Happy and delighted to have all of y'all with us this morning. Share the live, folks. It's the second day of June, believe it or not. Yeah, Monday, the second day of June. Believe it or not, where did May go? Folks, where did May go? We got to redeem this time. We got to redeem this time. Let's head into that discussion, folks. On this program, we're going to sit down this morning with one of my favorite people, attorney at law, chartered accountant, Christopher Ram. Yep, it's been a little while since I've sat down with Mr. Ram. And we're going to be talking this morning, a wide-ranging and very frank discussion, conversation from this surprise announcement of early elections to the manipulation of state resources. As you can see, people are already campaigning with state resources. We're going to touch on the dangerous mishandling of Guyana's oil. I think this gentleman is very familiar with how this oil wealth should be managed and managed correctly. And we're going to touch on the very heartbreaking neglect of the Madio fire victims as well, folks. Mr. Faram, of course, offers very sharp, unfiltered insights into the very troubling state of governance in Guyana. And he will also address the very dangerous erosion of our democratic guardrails and the entanglement of the private sector with political power. And this is the very deep risk also that are facing our financial stability. We're going to touch on that as well. This is a must listen to conversation with the legendary, iconic Christopher Ram as Guyana approaches another crucial and critical general and regional elections. Election 2025 is September 1, announced by President Irfan Ali at our 59th Independence Anniversary celebrations just recently. Talk to us about that.
First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and anniversary greetings to all your viewers on BSF. The PPP is an electoral machinery. It believes in election because it believes in power. It believes in access to power. It believes in access to resources. That it has decided to shorten its term, this term parliament, is kind of counterintuitive. It's consistent with how it has operated in the past, how it has conditioned itself because of what Janet Jagan lost in terms of her presidency, in terms of duration. Ramatar, the prorogation, he chose to prorogue rather than to subject himself to vote of no confidence. So this is very unusual, but it must be part of a calculation. And what that calculation is something that I guess we can discuss.
Yeah, but let us get right into that. There is a school of thought that suggested that because of the many issues that don't favor the government nationally that are occurring right now, they would want to stretch their tenure to the very end, as you suggested has been the modus operandi of past PP governments. What is your own thinking why they would deny themselves that kind of margin?
I think I may disagree with you slightly. I think publicity is going, despite them being and having all the resources the entire machinery at their disposal, when it's the media, the resources, the personnel, public servants, everybody. They are not winning this, and they're not coming out favorably. This exchange in legislation they're passing, in the decisions they're making, in the kind of, in the manner in which they're going on this investment program. I had the benefit of looking at a video in the Barcelona school, and that's not the only one. We have the Bami, we have the Tipui.
Yeah.
They've got lots of projects that are a true embarrassment to them. And maybe they're learning from the 2015. You remember their Myla. That was a big scandal. Pradoville too. So they're not winning, despite the control of resources, they're not winning the PR war.
So would you suggest that let me put it the other way. Why would you suggest they're having this election on September 1 as against a later date?
Because look, we just captured one of our major deciding supporters. They dominated. You always believed that this was a PPP conference or electoral Chavez conference. If they got what they wanted from that, they want those people to go back to the communities and propagate what they were told by a stream of ministers about the glory to heaven of the PPP and what it's doing. Anything else would allow others to go and undo some of that message.
Yeah.
So I think it's a calculated.
A lot of money going to be given to the communities too, to those indigenous communities through the LCDS project too. It hasn't been disbursed as yet, as far as I know.
They have been disbursing LCDS money, but this is bigger than LCDS. This is using the cash grants and the entire machinery of the state. Part of this contingency fund and the entire budget, they are for the benefit of all the constituencies which the government is the biggest winner. I a couple of months ago, I went into Boxer, but I used it for a stage.
Yeah.
It's 100. And I thought to myself, oil has not touched this village. And I believe if you were to go into a lot of villages that they consider not traditionally their supporters, they are back to where they were 10 years ago.
But Mr. Ram, large swaths of Region 1 could be considered PP supporters. And they were telling us oil has not touched Region 1 as well. Look at the quote-unquote Amerindian People's Hostel. This looked like it has not changed in any significant way. There are lots of unfinished projects I shouldn't say lots, there are a few unfinished projects in Region 1. So it's not only the traditional basis that vote for them. What have they done with 5 years and all of this money? And I want to jump on that. They must have knew on the 24th. The announcement for the election was on the 25th, that they were going to the election, and yet they went to the National Assembly for billions of dollars, and we have not even exhausted the $1 trillion budget that was passed just a couple months ago. Is that deceptive? How do you characterize that?
I think deception is an appropriate word, if not the strongest possible one one can use. They would have known. Minister Ashley Singh comes under the office of the president. That would have been a decision made. Now, let me tell you my big fears, Sharon. You have a 12-month budget team, plus a $57 million. They could do almost what they want. Nobody tells them. The parliament doesn't say you can only spend 1/12 of the annual budget. That only happens if you don't have a budget for the year you have a budget. So they could conceivably, though it would be even for the BPP, which is a spending machine as well, they could conceivably spend a full year budget in 8 months, but only get 8 months revenue. You're not going to accelerate the collection of revenue. You can accelerate the spending of expenditure. Plus this $57 million, we could find ourselves at the end of the year with a massive debt burden, additional debt burden over what we already have in the current budget. Now, if that happens, what are we going to do? Are we going to increase debt burden, or are we going to say, let's take some money out of the natural resource fund? And that's the real danger. And there's no easy part There's no easy answer for us Guyanese. Them, yes, they don't really care how much money is borrowed. If we increase our debts, who pays? This generation, the next generation. If we tackle, if we say, no, we don't want to spend anymore, let us draw down some money from the Natural Resource Fund. Who suffers? That's an intergenerational fund.
Correct.
So whichever way, the Guyanese will pay the penalty for calling these elections at this time, having just passed additional money, whether or not the PPP comes back to office. Because any government that now comes has to confront the reality. Look, we are in financial distress.
Mr. Ram, when this government, as we're on election-related issues, when this government assumed office, you must have felt maybe they had turned the corner on their previous bad behaviors. Are you surprised? Has anything shocked you in these last 4 years, 9 months, 10 months?
You know, Sherrod, there's a saying in management, it's far easier to change personnel and to change plans than change culture. If your culture is to do this, and we saw what the 2015, what the 2011 government was, this spending of money without any regard for financial probity, all those forensic audits, all those charges against my senior members of this government.
Yeah.
So first thing they did, drop charges. So on hindsight, and bear in mind that we have a continuation of the Jagdeo presidency. The president will be who, as part of the presidential candidate, PPP, will be who the PPP of which Bar Jagdeo, by VP, is an all-powerful vice president, general secretary. So it is really a continuation of the same practice. And we know there was one of the big beneficiaries of Fraude Virtue. We still have that vice investigation. We've never answered those questions. President Irfan Ali never said, you know what?
This is the Vice News investigation with Isabel Young.
Yes, with him. See, what's going on?
Yes, Suge.
Those things have never, so they've been just swept under the carpet. To think that anything has changed, look how they've controlled access to information. What I'm finding out now, that PUC, that PPC, Public Procurement Commission, is dysfunctional. It is sent there almost like the same purpose for the Office of the Commission. If we don't help democracy, stall as much as you can do.
This is tremendously disheartening to hear you paint the picture. We've all lived it, but the way you sum it up, it's very, again, so disheartening. Let's go on from there. I saw a recent article based on the Madhya children. We lost 20 of our children in that horrific Madhya dormitory fire. 2 years ago, almost to the day, just over 2 years ago now, 2 years and days. And then we saw the revelations recently that the Private Sector Commission is holding $30 million as contribution, as charity that's to be directed to that family. And in this article, I hear you say that they were instructed not to release that money because the government wanted to be seen as the only entity aiding this family. That is mind-boggling, Mr. Ram. Talk to us about that.
Again, your language, apart from mind-boggling, is almost inhuman for a government that says, we care. Everything is we care. We care. We didn't care for those things. And it raises the question, Adriana, you worry about all of this, but that particular issue with the $30 million was sitting there in the books of the private sector because they entered into discussions which they ought not to have done in the first place. What you see, there is almost an incestuous revolving door relationship between the private sector commission and the government of them and the PPDC. So you summed it up. The government wanted to be seen, the soul, the consoler in chief, the donor in chief, the benefactor in chief. We alone care for people. Nobody is the private sector. Even though the private sector are the friends, but the friends only to the extent that they can use them give them direction and instructions.
It's interesting because I'm certain this is the same private sector commission who are going to want to be interlocutors in the upcoming election. They're going to have what you call observers and all of that. How does the private sector commission rationalize this? I know it was put to the past chairman quite recently. He said he's no longer chairman, asked the current chairman, even though this $30 million was accumulated, was raised under his tenure.
Yeah.
And then the current chairman says he's not pronouncing on the tenure of the previous chairman. This is madness. The private sector commission that holds itself out to be the paragon of virtue.
That ought to set the standards, which is why article said, look, they ought to have a register of direct interest. They should have a declaration of interest. They should have a rule that, look, you cannot walk out of the chairmanship of the private sector commission into the chairmanship of a state body or
Yep.
a recipient of major contracts or to be on a list of candidates. We don't know where this will go. I have come in for some criticism. I've even been accused, look, you're letting out secret. I have always made the point, Sharon, that my duty to Ghana, and certainly when we talk, I don't like speaking about those children. When you think what they would have gone through,
Yeah.
just think this room we were in, there's a fire and we try to get
Yeah.
out, and that window is grilled.
Yeah.
They're coming and they do nothing about it. These little innocent children.
Yeah.
And that,
20 of them.
how can you not be embarrassed and admit to shame in a situation like
2 years, $30 million is sitting there because the government says do not spend it.
that's inhuman, that's subhuman. There's no explanation for that.
And I love the way you juxtapose one of their refrains, this we care. This is criminal, if you ask me. So we have that on that side, the we care. And then we got this unique situation in our oil and gas, oil economy more than gas now, where it seems as though the government is siding with an entity that it should be regulating. It is more a partner with the entity against the interests of the Guyanese people. And here we're talking about ExxonMobil. Here we're talking about the recent oil spill legislation. But even before we get to that, I know some of the stakeholders had taken the government to court for what is commonly called a parent company guarantee to safeguard Guyanese interests in case of an oil spill or anything that should go untoward out there, that our interests would be safeguarded. And here's the government joining with ExxonMobil to fight its own people. Talk to us about your own understanding of that historic judgment by Justice Sandal Kisoon, and then walk us to where we are now with this what is now new act on the books, Mr. Wright.
Yes, it's a new act. It's to be assented to, but the president remains the president. Everybody stepped down. And now they all remain in place until the elections. Now, we've had that situation continuous. And now brought his action against for this clarification of the tax issue. When we gave away the taxes, the government joined in the matter. When the Environment Protection Act, you had a member of the government going, always the government has been taking the side of the oil companies. And you wonder, we accuse, just with absolutely no evidence, we accuse Raphael Chapman of taking money to sign the 2016 agreement. Let's say he did not know then. Barjadil knew, he said, do you remember that outrage, that maybe a feigned outrage he expressed on television to renegotiate? The President finally, before he became president, we will review and renegotiate. They all singing this song.
Yeah.
Can they justify all of that because of the protection from the U.S. against Venezuela? I don't think so. I really don't think so. There must be some other reasons. And look at you raised the question of this bit. Mr. Nalal, the Attorney General, took strong objections. He tried to fool people. I saw him reported in the press, you cannot have unlimited guarantee. No. If someone from abroad comes here, sets up a little enterprise, that enterprises causes some severe damage to our country. The enterprise, let's say the damage is $10 billion. The damage is $1 billion. The local entity has $1 billion. And the parent says, I'll give you $2 billion more. It means the country has to carry $7 billion of liability. And that Mr. Nandalal is not being on, and no, he knows. He can see there's nothing wrong with saying, I will guarantee whatever that person doesn't pay. That is standard in guarantee. You don't know when you take a bank loan and somebody gives a guarantee. You don't know how much that, yes, it's going to be the maximum of the loss. So we're saying whatever the maximum of the loss is. And sure, we have to say, before we say parent guarantee, it must be ultimate parent. You've done company, I've had the privilege of the government. Remember, they have a little shell company.
EEPG,
in a tax haven. The real parent is Exxon abroad. And so we want an ultimate parent company guarantee for whatever is the amount of the loss is not met by the local entity.
Yeah. And I know you have some challenges with the current legislation. I see they're trying to claim that this legislation will provide for parent company guarantee, even though they're fighting the appeal of Justice Adel Kissoon's judgment. And some folks are of the view that this legislation does not go far at all. And I think you are out there saying it might be even unconstitutional.
There are elements that could easily be questioned. I am concerned about that. For you to tell this nation, for Mr. Nandalal to tell this nation, there's no such thing as an unlimited guarantee. Who knows what is going to cause if we were to have a massive oil spill, not only to the local economy, and bear in mind the concentration of the facilities that we have on FPSO. If one is shut down, I don't know, you're not currently have oil generated or revenue generated for maybe weeks or months. So we will have loss of profits. We will have obligations to Venezuela. Think what that could do. That would give President Maduro, the excuse he's looking for.
Yeah.
And we have to be very cautious.
Yeah.
That is almost as close to Trinidad as it is again.
And
we need to have unlimited parent company guarantee.
And there's an experience tells us with all of the major spills we've had over the years that these spills cost billions of dollars.
They can.
Billions of dollars they can cost that.
And Macondo costs $145 million.
Yeah. So $2 billion is a drop in the bucket.
No, that's almost just to initiate the exercise. Now, what do we do with this bill? And I don't ever discuss private conversation. But what do we do with this bill? We said, no, we will take all the responsibility. We will have this director general, that director general. Where are we going to get these resources? And you know what, Sharon? In most countries, oil spill response, first of all, in the area of pollution and the environment, polluter pays. So whoever is the polluter pays. What we have here is we have a big machinery that says, oh, we're going to set up this thing. And where are we going to get this money? Do you know where the Americans get the money from to initiate their environmental work? From a fund or a levy. It's called a trust fund. A levy of so many cents per barrel of oil imported or produced in the United States of America. And that goes, so the oil sector, the sector is what Mr. Nandalal, what they did not seem to know. We have the International Maritime Organization. He told the bill talk 30 times about ships, this speech. And we leave that out completely. We have not touched. If you look at the 2016 agreement, this bill could actually be taking some of the responsibility on because it lessens the standard. What the stability clause says, I don't want to get too technical.
So the challenge here is overlapping legislation.
Yes. Yeah. Overlapping EPA, the shipping legislation, or international obligation, the 2016 agreement, Now this legislation
It's a little bureaucratic too.
is going to create serious it's going to confusion. And what worries me, look, it's not like a major oil spill takes place every day. But the fact is we have this concentration of wells in a very narrow area.
Yeah.
And therefore that increases the chances of something happening someday. And therefore we ought to protect ourselves. Otherwise, we can have a period when you have no revenue coming in, when you have to be using the oil fund, because in the 2025 budget, money from the Natural Resource Fund accounts for 50% of the revenue. We have become so oil dependent. Oil is now being used, the oil fund is being used for budgetary support, which we should not do. And Terence Campbell has a case against the government of Ben dealing with that same issue, misusing the oil fund.
And I think one of the things that Terence Campbell points out, Terence Campbell, who sits as a member of the investment committee of the National Resource Fund board, says that the thing is not functioning the way it was supposed to function. It just isn't. The board is not dictating what this money is spent on. The investment committee is not looking at investment opportunities. It's just rubber stamping the spending of the government, basically.
Because the government in that 2023 legislation decided it's going to undo the Natural Resource Fund legislation. This is 21. Decided it's going to set the parameters so there's not a lot of money left. It not only sets out how much money can be taken up automatically, typically $2 billion. There's not much money left to go into the fund for the investment. So the investment committee doesn't have what work to do indeed.
Yeah, no, that is tragic because it always seems that like they come with very good intentions, but when you read the fine print, like when they were changing the quorum from the Public Accounts Committee, it always seems as though it's good intentions, but then the mischief that is created there, generations could be affected by this. Mr. Ram, where are we going as a country?
Before you get there, you're probably too young to know, but street card, you know the street card.
Share trick, yeah.
And often that's what you get. That's what you get. Now, where are we going? It's frightening because there is no room for any voice. We can see even the charitable area now.
Yeah.
PPP says we must dictate it. And the private sector commission say, yes, sirs. The NGO section, the media, the religion, every single sector of this country is controlled. The budget, the parliament. They put a speaker who says, look, I am not accepting that question. He is such a dictator and not a particular dictator that serves the purpose of the government. The Commission of Information, the same thing. The Public Procurement Commission. I am astounded to what I have read and learned over the past couple of years, and I'll be releasing some information to the media.
Yep. I know
it's frightening. It's frightening where we're going.
I know you are not overtly political, but what would you say to Guyanese in this spirit? But what would you say to Guyanese when they're looking for new leadership in this country, in this period where the election has been declared, the election date?
I've got two particular views on what happens in the political scenario. We can't wish away PPP or the PNC. They have strong historical support. We needed, as we had the opportunity, we need a strong third force to keep both sides in line. That doesn't allow either side to get out of hand. Now, we've had a bad experience. Look, you've got, soon after the Schumann became a government employee, you've got the deputy speaker. Look what she has done.
Yeah.
Third parties have been a disgrace, but we can't give up. They're the only hope we have. You cannot count on the PPP. The PPP has its own form of corruption. The PNC has got it. It must shed that image that it's not a responsible government. And it was so pleasing to see the leader of the opposition the other day Any speech, he can be very responsible. We need more of that. People like you, the energy, the work you do. We've got, nobody, this constitution. But again, you have a constitution that gives president, that's a Bonham constitution. That's what it's called. This is still the 1980s.
That they have riled against for years, but haven't changed much at all.
It's the best thing. It's the best thing that you could have given the PPP. And I would have liked, so that's one side. Those who come with small party, it's almost as though they see this as an entree to wealth and power. Not power. They don't really have power. Then you have the egos of personalities. Lots of people believe they can be president up there. It's not what you want to do. The first thing you want to do is to make sure that neither side really gets that kind of total control. If we can get that, if we can get some responsible leadership, sure, there's a case going on in court. That means it's going to get irrelevant now. It still will happen. I have a case that says you can have, that challenges the role that you must participate on a list in at least 6 geographical regions, making at least 13 of the geographical sea. Democracy ought not to work. Democracy is that you ought to be, if you're in region 1 or whatever region you are, you ought to be able to represent your people from that region without, in the highest forum in the country. Don't let them tell you, oh, you got RDC and all that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking the highest forum of the country. We have to get that change. We have to get lots of things about this constitution. But we have a constitutional reform commission. We voted 297 million or something like that. And it's moving at a space because nobody is serious. Nobody is serious. Whichever party is in power does not want constitutional reform. They only care about constitutional reform when they're in opposition. And the same has happened with the other side. The Carter Center, the GCOM arrangement was specific to the 1992 elections.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to change that. 1992 to what year, where are we now?
Yeah. It's a long time ago. It's a very long time.
So things don't look very positive. And you can imagine, you can expect people to think, this is my last opportunity to prevent a slide into complete dictatorship and one party rule. And if that doesn't succeed, then we have to think individually, what do we want to do?
Yeah. So is there anything else you wish to leave with us today?
I must tell you, you'll be kind to me. So I really like that video you did on the school in Orsororo. I want to tell you, however, that's only part of your job. You have many projects like those.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you just came back, I think. You said you prompted an immediate response from Minister of Education, Peer Manager. And I think that says something. Usually they don't respond.
Yeah. Yeah. That one is hard to miss. There's no gate, there's no guard, there's no machinery, there's no material on site. But the minister says the project has not been abandoned. The residents there know all too well. There's an area that has been earmarked for a multipurpose center. It was announced 2 years ago. Nothing has started on that site. That video is also in circulation. And if we had stayed longer in that region, we'd unearth more. There's a lot happening at the hospital. For instance, Mr. Ram, they tell us that patients have to go home to shower to come back to the hospital because you got those kinds of challenges happening there. There's a lot that is going wrong in the region. There's construction on the road happening. There's no drainage. The road sides are being washed away. There's no signage there. It seems as though we got a lot of money as a country, but maybe a lot of foresight isn't going into it. We don't like saying friends, family, or favorites, but that's what it looks like in this country.
That's the foresight. We're talking about spending. I'll try. This is a fairly new station, relatively new station, Diamond Grove. Someone called me last night. Their partner spouse was incarcerated. I tried 27 times.
Wow.
To get to the telephone. I could not get. The phone simply ran out. I don't wasn't working. Now, it shows you the lack of planning that is taking place. And again, we come back. We don't care because they
Yeah.
can call maybe the commissioner of police
Yeah.
and get immediate
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
Ordinary people like you,
Yeah.
I cannot do that.
Yeah.
And that poor person, he has not been able to enjoy his constitutional right to an attorney. Not that he deserves or doesn't deserve to be incarcerated, but he has a right to an attorney and to speak to an attorney.
Yeah.
But communication is shut down.
Yep. Yep.
There's so much to talk about.
There's an election ahead of us, Mr. Ram. Thank you so much for availing yourself to talking with us and helping us to make sense of some of this.
It's my pleasure.
And please don't let it be the last time.
That's your call.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, folks, there you have it. There you have it. And we hope that we did some justice in teasing out those responses from Mr. Ram and his vast knowledge of these issues. Of course, that was Christopher Ram, attorney at law, chartered accountant, and I dare say one of Guyana's most respectable public intellectuals, offering their very sobering, thought-provoking analysis of the serious issues confronting our nation. As Guyana heads into an election season, further into this crazy, silly season, the question he raises about governance, accountability, and the very future of our democracy must not be ignored. Stay tuned, guys, as we continue to bring you the voices, the facts, and the conversations that matter, and always that matter the most, rather, and always valid, credible information. Thanks for joining us, folks, on this very special edition of our broadcast. We're going to see you guys on the next one. Remember to share the live, smash that emoji button, and even partner with us as well once you can do. This is it for now, folks, from this end. Have a fantastic rest of the morning and stay safe out there.